Hello, time then for the press preview. It's our first look at tomorrow's front pages, and we'll check out the headlines tonight with Jenny Kleeman and Christopher Hope. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. A very good evening to both of you. We'll chat in a second after we've had a look at those front pages, starting with the Daily Telegraph, opening with Boris Johnson urged to make Hunt Chancellor, claiming that the Prime Minister's allies are pushing for a dream team in an attempt to heal the party. Well, the Daily Express says the Prime Minister is fighting back with plans for a major tax blitz to silence rebels. On a similar theme, The Times says Cabinet Ministers are demanding tax cut action if the Prime Minister wants to survive. While The Guardian says Tory MPs are plotting vote strikes to paralyse lawmaking and keep Boris Johnson on the ropes. Total Rail shutdown proclaims the Metro reacting to the news that 50,000 members of the RMT union are poised to strike on 3 days later this month, with widespread disruption expected. Similarly, the Daily Mail says the action will paralyse Britain in the biggest strike since 1989. The Daily Mirror asks, can't someone sort this out, warning of a continued summer of chaos for holidaymakers. While the FT leads with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky insisting that a stalemate with Russia is not an option and reiterating his appeal to Western governments for military support. On a different note, the Daily Star looks towards a weekend of storms and sneezing, citing high pollen counts as well as thunder. And don't forget that by scanning the QR code you can see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you listen to us discussing them. And I'm joined tonight by Jenny Kleeman and Christopher Hope. Jenny, it's lovely to see you again. First time for, 2 years?
To be back, Jonathan.
Great, and we're going to make sure your microphone is on as well, so we hear every word. And Christopher, lovely to see you too as well. Jenny, as it's your debut after such a long time, why don't you kick things off for us? What a 24, 48 hours it has been. The front page of the Daily Express are ever optimistic when it comes to Boris Johnson. Their headline, fighting back, Boris's tax blitz to silence rebels. Let me get your reaction, first of all, to last night's vote.
Well, I think it was pretty appalling for Boris Johnson, and I think he knows it, no matter how much he and his closest allies have tried to spin it, sometimes in quite Orwellian terms, as some sort of victory. It's a disaster for him. It's everything that his opposition would have wanted in terms of him being mortally wounded, but limping onwards. It means that either 70% of his backbenchers want him to go, don't support him, or it's a lesser proportion, and some of his ministers don't have any confidence in him. So it's disastrous.
Although none of them have got... Sorry to interrupt, Jenny. I was just going to say, none of them have gone today. Does that surprise you that there hasn't been more of a reaction?
Well, I think that Boris Johnson has deliberately chosen to surround himself in terms of the cabinet and ministers with biddable people that aren't going to challenge him. He doesn't necessarily bring people who have the most experience and the most insight into the highest position of government. He brings people who are loyal to him. So it doesn't surprise me that people haven't gone, because he's chosen people purely for their loyalty, I think. But what saddened me, I think, was to hear his statement to Cabinet today, which wasn't contrite. He was saying that the results was decisive and conclusive, and it shows that he still isn't listening. He wasn't listening to the boos at the weekend. He wasn't listening to the votes against him. He keeps robotically repeating this mantra about moving on and drawing a line. And whilst the Daily Express, Lord love them, they love the government. They're always going to put a positive spin on things, no matter what. But this was the vaguest word salad of promises, a massive agenda, tax cuts. We're going to cut taxes, but we didn't hear what. There is a lack of direction in this government. They are out of ideas. The ideas that they have, some of them have been nicked from the Labour Party, like the windfall tax. Some of the ones announced today where Boris Johnson was saying government departments have to be more efficient than ever before. This was announced weeks ago. And this ridiculous announcement today about how it's going to be an NHS for the Netflix era. What on earth does that mean? Are we going to be paying a monthly subscription? It's a word salad.
A word salad. Christopher, certainly wounded then, Jenny is saying, but can he fight his way out of this, as the Daily Express suggests?
Well, of course you can fight out of this, and much as Jenny may not want it to be the case, of course he can fight out of this. Time is on his side. He's got a year to get this back on track. The 1922 committee might change the rules to allow another no confidence vote in the meantime. But as Jenny knows, all the letters given to Graham Brady, the 54 plus the rest, have now gone into his filing cabinet, and it's wiped clean. The slate is clean, and Boris Johnson can fight back. And that's all he can do. And all the Express is doing is reporting what he told the cabinet. What Jenny may be saying is there's not enough real detail here. It's a lot of vague pledges that we've heard before about cutting spending and trying to find ways to cut taxes. And we at the Telegraph see the same thing. We want to see more actual, more conservative type policies with the many people thought they were electing when he was elected Prime Minister. I was there last night in Parliament, in the actual room, in the front row of the press team, when Graham Brady announced his result. It was quite extraordinary. The first half of the room banged the tables so the whips could see. The back half of the room where I sat, 50 or so Tory MPs, they all sat on their hands. They were not impressed. It was a big defeat. It's a long way back for Boris Johnson.
It was a dramatic moment. Christopher, just staying with you, I want to bring in The Guardian, because you can say that he's going to fight on, but there's no doubt about it, those rebels are going to keep fighting as well. And The Guardian's got an interesting take. Tory MPs plot vote strikes in order to keep him on the ropes.
Yes, that's one idea, and that, of course, would see the whip being withdrawn. The whips will get quite tough. I mean, it does seem quite extraordinary, those of us who had to slug our way through the Brexit wars of 2018, 2019, to see these vote strikes coming to the fore again. I'm not quite sure what the point of all this is, because there's no real person to unite behind. Jeremy Hunt came out quite early yesterday saying a vote for change, without saying he's standing for leadership, although everyone thinks he is, by the way. But why go on strike? Why damage the Tories even more? Why hemorrhaging defeat? I met a really senior Labour person today. He told me how he was amazed that Nadine Dorries had attacked Jeremy Hunt on Twitter by saying that he hadn't been prepared properly for the pandemic. And he was saying how Labour are going to screen grab all of these points, and they are the attack lines for the next election. And that's why it's a worry. And if you look at the top of The Guardian there, Marina Hyde, the brilliant columnist, saying, now watch as the Conservatives eat themselves. Well, they are. I call themselves a boxer, literally punching themselves in the face, while in the same ring, Labour look on and going, up to you guys, keep doing it.
Yeah, Jenny, you're nodding away.
Yeah, I mean, this has echoes of the last few months of the major government, of sleaze, of decadence, of division, of infighting, of the Tory party eating itself. And, we need really big, bold ideas in a time of crisis. We don't need suggestions of returns to imperial measures and attacks on the BBC channel. We don't have any of that at the moment. And the Northern Ireland issue is a really big problem that we haven't managed to solve. And the idea that there is going to be a backlash when voting on this bill in order to make a political point really lets down the people of Northern Ireland, I would say.
Jenny, when it comes to... jump back in, Christopher.
Well, I'm not sure that's quite right. I think the idea of pushing this bill, this Northern Ireland Protocol bill, as soon as tomorrow or Thursday, is exactly what he needs to do to sort the Brexit issue out. When he burst through that wall of bricks at the JCB factory saying he's going to get Brexit done, many Tories supported him on that very basis. Now, Brexit is not done for the people living in Northern Ireland. That needs resolving, and the hope is it can be shortly.
Jenny, you talked about bold ideas. This would be a bold idea, wouldn't it? Making Jeremy Hunt Chancellor, as the front of the Daily Telegraph is discussing.
Yes, there's no sense of where this suggestion came from. Maybe Christopher can give us some detail on that, or whether or not Jeremy Hunt would accept, given the position that he's taken, his criticisms of Boris Johnson. But it's this idea of keep your enemies close, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. What is remarkable in all of this is that apart from Jeremy Hunt, there is no obvious leadership contender to challenge Boris Johnson, no organised rebellion, which is what makes the margin of his victory, his Pyrrhic victory yesterday, so remarkable, because there was no one whipping or galvanising people to give a vote of no confidence. This will embolden potential successors, and it will also embolden those reluctant yeses yesterday. Jeremy Hunt is the only person who's really putting his head above the parapet in as much as anybody does in this situation. Rishi Sunak seems to be kind of mortally wounded at the moment. I don't know whether or not he would accept being Chancellor. I think he probably has bigger ambitions.
Well, he turned down a job, Christopher, didn't he? After the leadership election last time, I think they were going to. He was asked if he wanted to be Defence Secretary. Where has this idea come from in the Telegraph?
Well, it's clearly an idea which is doing the rounds. Boris Johnson met with senior MPs while MPs are voting before the vote last night in his private rooms behind the Speaker's chair in the Commons, and they were urging him to go for a reshuffle and be bold. The view on Rishi Sunak is he had a good pandemic. He's been badly damaged by the non-dom row, badly damaged by his own green card, which he gave up quite recently, and his wealth, sadly, is now seen as a damaging thing rather than the positive thing, which some Tories might view it as. So for those reasons, and also he did break the manifesto pledge by putting up national insurance by 1.25%. For those reasons, he is seen as the most obvious person to move in a reshuffle, in which case, who goes in as Chancellor? Liz Truss is an option, but Jeremy Hunt is a new idea, and that might unite the party. Don't forget, Jeremy Hunt fought the 19 leadership campaign on Unite to Win, and that's what the party needs to do now. It needs to unite to win, and maybe bringing Hunt into the fold is one option.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Welcome back to part two of the press preview. Jenny and Christopher still with me. Let's talk about the travel chaos that we're suffering at the moment, and there's more on the way. Front of the Financial Times, summer of misery looms as airports face staff squeeze and rail unions strike. Front of the Metro as well, total rail shutdown. Jenny, this is miserable, isn't it? It could be the biggest industrial action since 1989 on the railways.
Yes, and I think unless you've got a bicycle, you're not going to be travelling very far this summer very easily, I would say. There's three separate things in play here. One, there's the problems in the aviation industry. The chief executive of, I think it's Heathrow Airport, has told the FT that it's going to take 12 to 18 months to get things back up and running because of, lots of people were laid off during the pandemic. Tens of thousands of jobs were cut from the aviation industry, and it's really struggling as passengers want to travel again. And that is coupled with this news that on the 21st, the 23rd and the 25th of June, there are planned strikes from the RMT, and the news that it's going to cost about £100 to fill up an average car with unleaded petrol, and inflation already at a 9-year high anyway. It's a really bad summer to be making travel plans.
Yeah, Christopher, what do you think of the RMT's move? They're saying it's overpay, compulsory redundancies, safety concerns as well. They've had a real issue with pay, especially given that inflation is so high.
Well, the knock-on effects have already been felt by these dates that came out tonight. The Daily Mail have put them on page one. Tory MP Nikki Aitken, I know, is worried about the fact that these will fall around the same times as GCSEs. She'll have a lot of students who go by train to get to school, can't take their GCSEs. Would you believe it, after having 2 years of misery, taking exams at home or in controlled conditions or not at all because of the pandemic? Now they can't even get to school to take their exams. This will cause chaos for millions. It comes at a time when the government is trying to get more of us back on the rail, commute to work 5 days a week if you can, take trips away at the weekend, because it's so heavily subsidised. The idea is to make them cut the cost of running the network, trying and make it more sustainable. Well, that's the idea behind it, but the unions aren't happy about it.
And Jenny, just let's finish with this story at the front of The Guardian. The legal age of smoking could go up to 21.
This is new proposals that are going to be discussed. The legal age of smoking to go up to 21, and new taxes to be imposed on tobacco companies. It's one of these things that sounds like a good idea, although I wonder how many people are smoking who would be deterred by the legal age being moved up to 21 now. We know that smoking is at quite a low level comparatively compared to a couple of decades ago, and whether or not those who are smoking now would be deterred by that change is another thing. But in my view, anything to make it harder is a good thing.
We're going to have to leave it there. We'll speak again in a couple of minutes. Jenny, Chris, thank you.